What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Biblical Hitman. It's me, Steven, my brother from another mother, Jesse. Joining us for the first time is Harley Owens, and we're going to get into his story and what he's all about here in just a moment, folks. But if you want to support the show, if you wouldn't mind, smash that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends, drop a comment down below about the things we get into if you have any experiences yourself. And if you want to support us on audio platforms, you can do that as well on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Spreaker. While you're there, drop a follow and a review. Deeply appreciate it. But Harley, brother, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, it's awesome to be here tonight and look forward to sharing a little bit of my experiences, encounters, and just try and raise a little bit more awareness with the Sasquatch phenomenon and how it tends to be from a biblical standpoint from my research and kind of the experiences that I've had with these creatures.
Yeah, it's wild, man. I mean, you're a little bit of the story that I'm sure we're going to definitely get into has been out there on a few shows and big shows as well, man. So congratulations on that. For the folks that haven't heard of your story or anything like that, just tell us a little bit about yourself and where they can find your content or all your links and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Harley Owens. I'm married to my lovely wife, Gabrielle. We have two girls. Born and raised here in East Tennessee all my life. Growing up, I never did believe in Bigfoot or none of this stuff, because being in the Bible Belt, these things weren't supposed to be real. They're just stories to scare the kids growing up. And September 23rd, 2020, I saw my first one. I got a photograph of it, recorded some sounds, and I found some tracks. And so going on after that, I never really did tell anybody because when I got home, I faced a lot of ridicule. And for 3 years, it consumed me. And it got to the point where I started having nightmares, I couldn't sleep. And it got to the point where I needed to tell my story and get it out there. And so I went on a podcast, and then I started getting on more podcasts. And I'm like, well, I need to overcome this fear, because I stopped hunting and fishing, and it was tiresome. And so Thanksgiving of 2023, I went back out deer hunting and overcome what I thought was a fear of the Bigfoot. And I didn't know how to do it. So I looked up Bigfoot research in East Tennessee, and lo and behold, Scott Carpenter's name had pulled up, but unfortunately he had passed away. And he was right here in East Tennessee, and he done a lot of Bigfoot research. And so I messaged his son, Travis, and we kind of hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. And so I started doing the research December 7th, and from December 7th, 2023 to now, I've had so many different experiences, encounters, and just I even take people out, and and if y'all follow and keep up with Prometheus Lens, you'll see that we dropped a trailer for a film we've got coming out called Operation Smoke, and that trip was unbelievable. Several people got to see one, and so that was life changing for a couple of the people that were out there, and we're already planning our next little outing. So I can't say too much without spoiling the film. So we found all kind of footprints and stuff like that. But if you want to see it, there's a little bit of the debrief on Doc's channel, so y'all can go check that out. But I've definitely learned that there is a lot more than just the Bigfoot, and that was the hardest thing for me to accept, because when I go out there, I'm always recording behind me. Some of the time I record in front of me just for like my YouTube channel and stuff, but majority of the time it's when I'm recording with my backstroke camera. And so I always learned that they're very, very intelligent, and they always keep an eye on you. And so when you go into the woods, it's their home. Say if for instance, I was going to your house, you would keep an eye on me. And so they keep an eye on you when they're in their home. So it's almost like intuition that they can pick on who they can trust, so to speak. And it's like, I don't go out there all the time, and have an experience or an encounter. It's hit or miss. Sometimes I'll go out there and I won't hear or see anything, and then other times when I go in there, I'll hear something, or I'll catch a glimpse of one. Because let me tell you, these things are so fast. Like, you can catch a glimpse of one, and then they'll just be gone in an instant. And then it's just, initially I did think they were just an ape. Whenever I seen the first one in Southwest Virginia at a place called Pound, uh, I I thought they were an ape or some kind of relic hominid or something like that. And so I learned real quick after a couple of more experiences that there was preciseness in what these things done, and there was always more than one creature around. And so I'm kind of going a little off the wall here, but I remembered when my second experience, my wife was with me, and we were walking up the trail, and it was when we were on our way back out. She stops me. She says, "Look, those sticks over there." And I said, "Yeah, what about them?" Then I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know the tree structures would look for anything like that. So I went over there and looked, and these sticks were broken and jabbed into the ground with a sharp point sticking out. And I was like, "Well, that's kind of odd." And then there was two logs laying side by side like that, and I kind of just looked there at them for a minute. But in between those logs were the leaves were matted down. You could tell something was laying there, and I was like, "Well, if that's a black bear, that's the granddaddy of all of them," because it was just a huge bed in those leaves, and I could hear something up ahead of me moving. And I hollered at my wife. I said, "Stand right here." I said, "I'm just gonna go see what it is." I said, "It's probably a bear." So she's standing over on the main trail, and I'm starting to go back into this thick stuff, and all of a sudden I come across this huge game trail. These branches are up high broken, and I'm just standing there, and I'm like, it's almost like I get this gut feeling that there's something to my right. And I turned on a dime, and I locked eyes on it. It was a reddish brown one, and it stepped in behind the tree, and I'm just like, okay, all right, cool. Because my first one, when I seen it, it was up on a cliff face, and I had to zoom in, to manage to get a picture of it. It was probably about 65-ish yards away, but this one was a lot closer. It was within 25, 30 yards away from me, and so I'm sitting there, and in my mind, I'm like, all right, I know you're behind that tree. Just step out. This thing steps out, and we're locked face to face with each other. And there's a laurel bush right there, and he crouches down and he peeks his head out of the bush to look at me. He's got gray skin, just jet black eyes. He's got reddish brown fur, hair, whatever you want to call it. And he's just sitting there looking at me. And so I'm just mesmerized by this, because when I'm looking into this thing's eyes, it's a humanness kind of. It wasn't human, but yet it looked human. And so all of a sudden, to my left, there was a loud pop and pop and a snap of a branch breaking, and then behind me, I'm not sure if it was stomping in place or if it was charging towards me. All I know is I got out of there. But the funny thing was, when I was coming into that area, my pistol was on my right hand side, and when I turned, I had the one in front of me, the one to the left, and the one behind me, but my pistol was facing the opposite direction of all of them. So that was when I knew that there was an intelligence that was beyond just the ape. Because honestly, if these things were just an ape, there would already be hundreds of them in a zoo by now. And so when I when I remember just thinking when I got home, I kind of looked into Scott's research a little bit. I didn't really buy much into the woo. And so I looked, Cain. Cain was cursed to be a restless wanderer of the earth, but yet there's real no specification on how he was really cursed, so to speak, at least that I don't know of. And then of course Esau, Doc has done his research with the Epic of Esau, and
Yeah, he does
I
very well.
absolutely I absolutely love that book, man. And it's just like, man, I can always go back in here and look for something, but you know, it, I'm a firm positive belief that they are somewhat intertwined and connected with Esau and the Nephilim, which I mean, I think some of them are more in case with probably the Nephilim with the abilities that they have, using portals, the mind speak. But let me tell you, the mind speak is the craziest thing you will ever experience. I've
Yeah.
experienced it twice now.
Well, so explain that a little bit, the mind speak.
So it's a thing that I don't know if it's them doing it or if it's some kind of other entity or what. But when I've experienced it, there's always been the Bigfoot around. So I'm almost positive that they can do it. So the first time I experienced it was December 31st of 2023. It was just about to be a month of me doing the Bigfoot research. And I get out of the vehicle, and I'm normally the only person that's in this place hiking. And so I got out of the vehicle, and I get to going up the trail. I maybe get 50 yards away from the vehicle, and it's like my ears got cloudy and were ringing, and then a voice just came through, and it said Jerome. And I'm like, what? And I done a complete 360 thinking there was somebody right there with me, and there was nobody there. And I'm like, well, what the crap was that? And so I get going further up the trail, and I looked over to my left, and then there was a big X. And I'm like, okay, well, that's got to mean something. So I went over there and looked at it, and one of those trees was broken and brought in and jabbed into the ground, and they just pushed the other one over to make this X. And so I got home, and I looked up what Jerome meant, and it's ancient elder or guardian. It's ancient Greek for elder or guardian. It's Gerone. So that was pretty crazy. And then this most recent time was when we had Operation Smoke, and I never told nobody this, even after what had happened, during the filming and all that, because it was hard for me to kind of tell everybody what this thing said. So as y'all see in the film, there's a part of the film where some of us go back up to base camp before the others do. And it was myself, Doc, Drewski from Cryptid Warfare, Kevin, and Brian. So me and Brian are sitting together, and so is Doc, Drewski, and Kevin. And, we get to the point of where we're coming back up to base camp. And base camp is straight up this holler where my main research area is, and we're down in the bottom of this holler. And we get to the head of this holler to head back up to base camp. That ringing and stuff hit me again, and I'm not sure what kind of language it was, but it almost sounded like it was some form of Cherokee, but it said, "Get out of here now," like in a very, very stern voice. And I just started walking, and and everybody followed suit in behind me, and I never did tell them. I don't know what would have happened if we'd have stayed down there. I don't know, but it definitely hit me real hard, because I just recently told them all about it.
Wow.
Yeah, you know what's crazy, man? I'm kind of like I'm putting together and making some connections myself with what you're talking about, man. And I almost think that in these hot spots, right? You have these hot spots around the country, in the world, and a matter of fact, but these hot spots, it makes me think like, if we're making connections with the Bigfoot and the Nephilim, the Eliud, all this spiritual talk, right? What if these areas, these hotspots, were ancient lands that were maybe sacrificial areas? Maybe it could have been,
Ooh.
old areas where people were worshiping the little g gods, or even just idols, which could have been demons. It could have been
Yeah.
all kinds of different things. And it makes me, when you say Cherokee, and that rings a bell with the occult and what they were doing. A matter of fact, they were doing sacrifices and they were worshiping false gods, right? So
Absolutely.
could be a connection there. I don't know. This is wild.
There's no such thing as a coincidence in any of this. That's what I always tell everybody. Everything in this is all intertwined and connected. There's no looking any opposite ways at any of this stuff. It's all connected. I mean, the craziest thing that I've experienced recently is the orbs, because almost every time when I go out there at night, I see the orbs. There'll be red ones, green ones, all kinds of different colors. Just these big balls of light just moving through the wood. And I actually just posted a video on my Instagram from this last Saturday. We got an orb on thermal camera. This thing comes up and it's moving and zigzagging. I just posted it on my Instagram, and dude, it was wild. We got an orb right there on thermal for like a little over 2 minutes on thermal.
Wow. Jeez.
So, and when you go into these areas, I always tell people, when you go into these areas, if there's plenty of shelter, water, or food, they're going to be there. These things are more than just flesh and blood, but yet, if they're there, you're probably not going to know it unless they make themselves known. And a really good sign is when you're out there and it just gets so quiet you can just hear a little pin drop like that. That is one of the dead giveaways. That's when you're not the top dog in the woods. And so, normally they won't. The ones in my area, they've not been too aggressive. Like, yeah, they'll yell and do stuff like that, but they won't break down trees or throw big rocks. They'll throw little rocks, but they won't throw no great big ones. But there is a lot more than just the Bigfoot to worry about. But there is something else that me and Tony Merkel kind of talked about this, and me and my buddy George, we kind of had an experience together. This was the first Bigfoot that he had ever seen. We named him Alfalfa off of Little Rascals because when it was sleeting and raining on us, his hair was sticking straight up on top of his head. And so me and George had the interaction with the Bigfoot, but we had two other people with us. When me and George were sitting there looking at him, when he took off running, we never heard him make a sound.
Wow.
But when our buddies had heard him, they heard him coming through the woods like a bulldozer. I don't know if it's kind of like a veil or what when you have a run-in or an experience with these things, but it's kind of weird when two people can have the interaction, and not hear anything, but the other people can hear this thing come barging through the woods. So it's pretty crazy.
There's such a connection with the paranormal ghost stuff and this stuff. It's all like kind of like wrapped in this one big paranormal, cohort of craziness. But now you've had a lot of experiences. You've seen these things. When that moment is happening, what's kind of rushing through your mind? Like, do you want him? Like, it's crazy. Go ahead.
At any given moment, these things can have me if they want me. But always before I go out there, I pray, and I have that authority over these things because these things know their place. And I always tell people that whether they want to listen to me or not, and they can think it's the biggest bunch of BS or whatever. And it's a spiritual power over these things. And so I tested this. I made a cross and I placed it out on one of their tree structures and it broke it. And there was another instance where I took a quarter out there and I had where it said, "In God we trust," facing up, and they flipped it upside down. They never took the quarter. They just flipped it upside down where "In God we trust" was facing down. And so, and I'll dive a little bit more into this, but there is a spiritual power over these things. And what I mean by that is if you stay on the sidewalk, they can't get you. But if you go off the sidewalk, you're fair game. They're on a leash and it's not their time yet. But I'm not that smart. I go way off the trail. I go way out there. I put myself in a position to have these run-ins with these things, much less I have my camera recording behind me all the time. And so it's definitely crazy when you can walk through an area and then all of a sudden behind you, because I don't ever turn around. Whenever I'm out there, I never turn around because I don't want to know what's behind me. And I just let that back camera do all the work. And there's all kinds of crazy stuff that peeks out from around a tree or walks right behind me or just whatever. It's right. Unbelievable. Like I've still got hours of footage that I've not even touched yet.
Oh wow.
Wow.
I get way too far ahead of myself, and I get excited I love getting out there and searching for answers for this stuff, and I love sharing the evidence that I do have. I mean, I've been very fortunate since I've started doing this. I've casted 2 footprints, so the ground here is so hard, and when you find a track, it's kind of hard to cast it. But the biggest track that I found was 26 inches.
Whoa!
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Now on these tracks, is there any hair? Is there any imprint of its toes or anything? Or,
yeah. There's toes impressions. Yeah, a couple. Actually casted one back in March, it was 20 inches, but I didn't have enough casting material to cast the whole thing, but I got like 15 or 16 inches of it. But the toes were just sunk up into the dirt. Like
Wow.
it was wild. It was 20 inches long, 12 inches at the toes, and I think 6 at the heel. But the first one I casted was 17 by 8, and then it was 5 at the heel, I think. So I mean, they're all their
Jeez.
foot.
Wow.
Some of them's feet are real wide, and then some of them are kind of like ours, just a real narrow feet. Now I don't know if that's the feral people or what. That's a whole different rabbit hole to go down. The
Right.
feral people are, that's crazy
Yeah.
because my stepdaughter's dad, he actually seen a feral person last July, not too far from my
What?
research area. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So
Wow.
explain that a little bit. What is that feral
So
person?
the feral people are just pretty much just wild people that just live off the grid. You know, they've
Right.
lived
Okay.
there for generations, I guess. I mean, I'm not really sure, but my buddy Brian from Black Mass Paranormal, he does a lot of research into the feral people, and he thinks that they are remnants from the Indians of the Trail of Tears. You know, they didn't leave; they just went and ran off in the mountains, and they've stayed here ever since. And
Wow.
so, what had happened to him was he went he went out and he was trout fishing, right, not too far from where I go in and research at, and he just had this feeling he's being watched. And he said he turned around, and he seen this person up there behind a tree just peeking his head out, and it was hid. And so he said he went further down the creek away from it. He picked up a stringer and his fishing rods, and he took off down away from it. And he said he really had the feeling he was being watched again. He said it was just amplified, and he turned around, and this feral person's just standing right behind him, a butt naked, mangy man, and it had one of its arms behind its back. And he said the next thing he knowed, it threw down a big rock, and it took off running away from him. And he said he took off running. He called me. He was scared. I thought he saw a Bigfoot, but then when we seen each other face to face, and he looked me in the eyes, he said this was a person. So
Wow.
I didn't know. I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
Right.
That's wild, man.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. You know,
Hmm.
Harley, I've actually experienced um, some a wild encounter with, I don't know what it was, but it reminds me, like all the stories you're saying, like you can't hear them. They're
Hmm.
throwing rocks at you. So I'm going to tell you my story real quick out here in Vegas, right outside of the city. I live in Las Vegas, so
Oh, okay.
there's a place called Calico Basin, and it is I've brought Stevie there, and I brought a few guys there after the interaction to kind of show them where I saw this thing. And I was hiking with my wife and a friend of mine, and the sun was going down, and we were about a half a mile into the trail, half a mile to the entrance. It's really not a huge place. Like it's a weird kind of deal because it's a basin that is full of greenery, but it's in the middle of the desert.
Hmm.
So it's just this little basin area, and we're hiking out. We're just, typical hike. We've been there a million times. And the sun's going down, and we're kind of just like sitting there in the middle of the basin, towards the east side of the basin, towards like there's a mountain face area where we're sitting on, and we're just sitting there talking. The sun just went down, and then all of a sudden there's a big thud in the sand, and it was like a rock like this big, and we're like,
Hmm.
"What?" So we go, okay, that I wonder if that just fell from like the mountain or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're like sitting there, we ignored it, and then all of a sudden, again, a bigger thud in the sand, right in the similar area. We're like, "Whoa, okay,
Yeah.
something's throwing something at us." So we start running because we're like, somebody's throwing rocks at us.
Hmm.
So let's get out of here. So we start running, and then my wife slips in the sand, and then I go to pick her up, and I look right behind her in the middle of the basin, and I see this very big, tall thing with big red eyes. It
Yeah.
had big, glowing red eyes, and it just sat there. I didn't hear it move. It
Yeah.
didn't move a bit. It just sat there and was staring at us. And then I kind of giggled. It was like, "What in the hell is that?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "All right." And my wife saw it too. And then we're like, "Let's get out of here." So that's the whole story. It's just like it's just so weird. We didn't hear it. It's throwing rocks at us. I have no idea what this thing was, man.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it.
I'd say it was a Bigfoot. The glowing red eyes. That's a dead giveaway right there.
Is
It had
that
to.
what it really?
I mean, for it to throw, I'm telling you, when they throw rocks, they throw them almost in the same exact spot. Like
Yeah,
they'll throw one that's a little bit smaller than the other one, then they'll throw one that's just a little bit bigger. And
that's
it's just to
exactly what
get
happened.
it's just to get your attention and let you know that it's time to get out of there.
Wow, dude.
Wow. But it's more like, well, what do you mean it's time to get out of there? You think
Well,
maybe they inflict harm or just
They don't
fright?
want you there, right?
yeah,
That's the feeling I
they
got.
don't
It's like
want you there. Yeah,
They don't
it's their
want you there.
turn.
Yeah.
They're doing
Yeah.
yeah,
something.
You're just
yeah. Well,
walking on their
when you get
lawn, you know?
for you to get dusky dark, that's them letting you know it's time to move on. It's time for us to come out.
Wow,
Yeah.
But
dude. And
It's
I tell
Hey,
you, go ahead.
Harley, I've been out there. And after that, I went out there a lot in the middle of the
oh,
night, 1 a.m., 2 a.m.,
Hmm.
3 a.m., and I've never seen anything again. But I did,
No, they're still
unfortunately, like
there.
the last few times I went out, like I always carry. So I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
going out there without carrying now. It's just not
yeah.
happening.
That I mean, if I hope, I mean, if I will never shoot one, but if it comes down to
Right.
my life for it,
Right.
it's if I mean, there is good and bad ones. I will say that. And from what the
Interesting.
stories that I've heard, I think that there is some that's good, and then there's some that is just a straight up asshole. And I ultimately, if it's between me and the mean one, it's going down.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know if y'all ever heard the story of Daniel Boone, but Daniel Boone actually unalived one. When they done an autopsy on it, and the chest is just nothing but solid bone. A bullet couldn't penetrate it, and the only way you can just end it is through a head.
Wow. And you need to probably at least a 45 caliber minimum.
A big round. Yeah, not no little 9 millimeter or nothing like that. Yeah, you'd have to have a big round. But that's
High
like
velocity.
the dog man. The dog men are a whole different animal, and I've had two visual sightings of those things, and they're not they're not friendly at all. They will they will get you if they
you
want
think it's
to.
like, you think it's a different spirit than the Bigfoot?
I think they're all in the same from the just the
Yeah.
offspring of the well, I think that the Bigfoot, like you said, the Eliud, they're the offspring of the Nephilim.
Right, 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 right.
I think these dogmen, are remnants from the gene manipulation, the seed
Mm,
war, from stopping the coming of Christ. We see all these depictions
Mm.
of centaurs and minotaurs and all this stuff. Well, that just goes right in with the gene manipulation. And so
No,
I
I
think
agree.
essentially
Yeah.
that's where these dog-headed men come in. And
right.
I've had people tell me that they're hellhounds and stuff like that, which they could be. I don't know, but all I know is that I've seen them, and I've actually got a really good picture of one posted up on my social media. And my stepdaughter's dad was actually with me when we encountered it, although we never seen it. I got a photograph of it.
Whoa.
But so the first dogman that I ever seen, I seen it January 29th of last year. I think I'm going to go out to my normal area, and I didn't. And I got out to this new location. It's straight across the creek from where I normally went to. It's just further up the mountain. So I get out in this first area, and I find these tree structures, and I find these rock stacks. I'm like, okay, well, there's some Bigfoot here. And I went back to the truck and headed further up the mountain. And why I had my pistol right there in the truck, but I never thought to grab it. But I remember distinctly before I hit the woods, this was really the first time that I ever really prayed before I went into the woods. I remember it distinctly. This was the first time that I ever really prayed before I went in. And so I get out and I start hiking up the trail towards this waterfall. And so I'm going up through there and I'm zigzagging and I cross a couple bridges. And then I get to this point of where I come down the hill and there's a little washed out culvert. I cross the culvert and I come up this ridge, and the trail kind of wide off. And the trail to the right was overgrown real bad because the trail services, park services didn't really trim it up good. So that trail was not good for me to go down. So I just went further up towards the waterfall. And I go further up the trail, and there's a game trail that cuts straight across the main trail. So I just walked right over in there, and I found these twist brakes. And twist brakes are what I really look for, that the Sasquatch do, these real high twisted brakes. And when I got to looking at it, I was like, well, maybe the wind done this. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking around at all these other trees, and it's like none of these other trees are broken. And the funny thing was, one of these trees was twisted and broken facing up the mountain, and the other one was twisted and broke facing down the mountain. And I was like, okay, well, this is some kind of marker.
Right.
And the one that was broken, twisted and broken, going up the mountain, after going back on February 2nd, we had measured it, and it was 8.5 feet off the ground. So whatever had done that was big. And so I get back on the main trail, and I go further up the mountain there, and I get to this curve in the trail. And I remember that when I got to that curve, I checked my phone, and I had like 40-something% battery. And I'm sitting there trying to send my wife my location over the satellite, because I didn't tell her where I was going. I told her that when I left, I was going to go to my normal area, and I ended up not going there. So I'm trying to send her my location. And finally, it sends over satellite. And I get to go on straight up the trail a little bit, and then there's another real sharp curve. And I get around that curve, and there's another curve that's coming up. And I checked my phone again, and it said 10% battery, and it shut off. And I'm like, well, this is deja vu all over again, because when I had my first experience with the Bigfoot, and when I got the picture of it, I had a brand new iPhone 8, and it completely shut off. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, well, I got to go home now. And so I turned around, and at this point, it's starting to get dusky dark, and it's just starting to snow a little bit. And I'm like, this is just great, because I just had on a hoodie and a little t-shirt underneath, and I just had some jeans on. I didn't have no thermals on or anything. I'm like, this is going to suck coming off this mountain. And I come back around the curve, and I maybe get 15-ish yards after coming around the curve to the next curve. I heard something behind me to my right moving. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to stop, I'm going to turn, it's going to be there, and it's going to be a Bigfoot. That's what I told myself. I said, it's going to be a Bigfoot. And I turned, and laying there on the ground is this huge dark brown wolf. I mean, it was huge. He has these huge yellow glowing eyes, and I'm like, oh, great. Oh, great. And it pushes itself up with its forearms, and it takes 3 steps to a tree that's within 15-ish yards of me. And he props one of his arms up on the tree, and he digs his nails into the tree. And so I'm sitting here, and I'm locked eyes with this thing. And after I had went back to figure out how tall this thing was, it was 8 feet tall, not including the ears. So I don't know if it was 8.5, 9 foot. What the ears on this thing were huge, almost like a German Shepherd's ear.
Wow.
And the hand, you ever seen a raccoon's hands up close?
Yep.
These dogmen have hands that are exactly like a giant raccoon.
Creepy.
And yeah, very ominous. And it was almost 4 foot at the shoulders. I think it was like 46-ish inches. But the only reason I knew how tall he was because when he propped his arm up on the tree and dug his nails in, I could get a reference from where his head was on that. And so and a lot of people say they don't have tails. The one that I've seen had a tail. It was about like a fox's tail, just big and poofy. And a lot of the cases that you hear, they have a backwards facing legs with a hop. And this one did not have that. It had forward facing legs like a human. It was an unbelievable looking creature. I mean, this thing's sitting there, and it's looking at me, and I'm looking at it. But then that's when the stuff started happening in my head. You know, these visions or premonitions or whatever you want to call it. You know, my wife growing up with being a widow without me, my kids are growing up without me. You know, all this just negative stuff happening to me. And I knew if I was going to make it out of there, I'd have to turn and just run. And I did not have the right shoes on for this whatsoever. I wear muck boots whenever I go out. These real thick muck boots, you know, because if a snake bites into them, you ain't going to go through it. And so I start backpedaling. As I'm locking eyes with this thing, it's growling and snarling at me. And it's taking the one hand still propped up on the tree, and it's taking the other one and acting like it's trying to get me. It was so bizarre. I mean, I had nightmares there for a little while after, you know, I seen this thing. And so I started running, and I got to the point of where the culvert was at, and this thing it's not chasing me on the trail, it's chasing me from off the trail, and I can hear the foliage and stuff crashing through there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm running. And I still get to the point of where I come to these other two bridges. I have to cross them. When I crossed the first bridge, I just kind of glanced over my shoulder and I seen the foliage moving. I could see its head coming through the foliage, and I still took off running. And then I got to the point of where the next bridge was, and I'm almost positive that's when it stopped following me, but I'm not 100% for sure because all I know was I was still hauling ass out of there. And the dogmen are just something that are evil, and that's the only way that I can just really describe those things. And they, whether some of them are made by our government, I don't know, but there is a story from Michigan, a guy named Joe Barber or something. I can't remember what his last name is. He was driving a semi through the Manistee National Forest, and this dogman, he stops to check his air brakes on his semi, and he gets to going again. He's going through the gears, and he looks out his passenger side window, and this huge wolf is keeping pace with his semi, and it's trying to get in the cab, and its head is head level with his window, and it's trying to get in, and he pulls up his gun and he shoots it, instantly unalives it, and it just falls, and he goes up the road to turn around and come back. And as he comes back, there's another one that's dragging it into the woods. And then when he gets out to look around, I can't remember what the vehicle was, but a black vehicle, I think it was a Jeep, black Jeep pulls up, men in black, get out, and, oh, you killed our asset.
I remember that
Yeah.
story. I remember that. That's a crazy story.
Wow.
That's a wild, that's a crazy one.
Now, isn't there another story? I think this was with the gentleman that was on the confessionals with you or something. He was talking about a girl that was, taken up off the road or something, had blood all over her.
That was in my research area. Yeah. That was in my research area.
So tell that story, because that kind of like alludes to kind of like the same thing we're getting into.
So there was a park ranger that was going to work on and around the cemetery area where I research at, and he was weed eating or something. And he gets to the point of where he sees this woman coming up from the woods. And this is the same stretch of woods that we all went down for Operation Smoke. I didn't tell everybody that until after.
Yeah, you're just you're the guy. You're that guy.
And so she's coming up from the woods there, and she's butt naked, and she's got huge claw marks over her, and she's bleeding out. And so he rushes her to the nearest hospital here in town. And he ends up leaving her there at the hospital, and then the hospital calls him back and saying that she won't talk to anybody but you. And by the time he gets back to the hospital and he gets in there, she's already gone. And they go back and look at the cameras. A black SUV pulls up, and people get out, and they go in there and get her, and that woman's never been seen again.
Wow. I can't help it, man, but I always kind of bring this up when we talk about all this Bigfoot Dogman stuff. The movie Cabin in the Woods is just so interesting, because when you have stories like that and you see the resemblance in the movie where, basically the government's in charge of a secret under, black ops program, and they're releasing cryptids on people. For ritualistic purposes. There's another connection with maybe the territorial lands, the ancient lands. You were talking about feral people. Who knows what they're doing, at night? It seems to be maybe they're more nocturnal, but maybe they could be doing rituals. You see it in these movies all the time too, in these thick forests. These are places where rituals are done, and I'm really wondering if either they're trying to bring them in, or if there's also a government conspiracy behind.
I think it's all of it. I think it's all of it, honestly.
All of it.
and I mean, even here in Oak Ridge National Laboratory, CERN, like, it gets deep in there, man. Like, I've heard some crazy stories, and I've got some inside scoop of what's really going on in Oak Ridge National Laboratory. But from what I can say on here for right now, that they are opening portals. And so
Hmm.
I tend to think that's why there's more and more cryptid stuff happening here in East Tennessee. But
Wow.
CERN is kind of shady anyway.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely, man. So I'm gonna circle back around because you mentioned
Yeah,
something interesting. You talked about your first Bigfoot experience. You had a new iPhone 8 Plus or something, right?
yeah, yeah,
And you snapped a picture of this thing, right?
yes,
Okay, so you said something happened to your phone. So
yes,
there's a connection with these things and electronics, right?
absolutely,
So, I
absolutely.
mean, do you have any other experience in the field with issues
Uh,
happening or
Actually, just this last Saturday, we had a big camp out down in Talladega National Forest, and we were going to play some music and stuff like that, and all of our equipment was not cooperating with us, so we couldn't even play music.
Oh,
oh
wow.
wow.
um, and that's actually when we got that orb and stuff on
Hmm.
video. And there's there's other instances like your phone batteries being drained. Like I've had people come out in my area, and actually I think our thermal got drained on Operation Smoke. Pretty sure, yeah, the thermal was being drained of battery pretty good. And we also had Drewski and them from Cryptid Warfare. They had a bunch of walkie talkies and stuff, and we had a lot of static through the walkie talkies. But the
Sure. Right,
infrasound,
right.
these creatures can emit what us researchers call infrasound, and it's a sound above or below our hearing. And the first time it really hit me hard was last July. I went out to a new area. It's about 2 or 3 miles through the woods, but I can hit on the main highway and be there in a mile. But I went out to this area, and I seen a juvenile. It wasn't very big at all. It was about 3.5, 4 foot tall. He just real dark brown, and he was up on the ridge above me, and he crouched down and he propped his head up on a log like this and was looking at me.
Hmm.
And so I'm trying to manage to somewhat try and get this thing on video, and that's when I felt it hit me. Just a headache, nausea, and vomiting. I didn't really vomit until after, but it hit me with I had a headache. Now my teary, I got watery eyed, and I think I was between him and Mama. I don't know, but I was definitely
Wow.
between him and another one, and they were having it. And after that, yeah, I got home that evening, and I was in the hospital the next day, and 5 days in the hospital. They never told me what was wrong with me. And actually, just a couple weeks ago, I had a buddy out from Oregon, and we went out and we were sitting there talking in close to the same area. And I got hit again. I was standing up, and it hit me, and I fell to my knees. And he kept asking me, "All right, you're all right?" I was like, "Yeah, I got zapped." And when I got home, I was fine. Then the next day, I just kind of laid around like a zombie. I didn't really feel like moving. And then the next day came around, I was throwing up blood, and it eventually just kind of left over time there. But it was like, if I go to the hospital and, they tell me there's nothing, I'm not going to walk up into the hospital and tell them, "Hey, I got zapped by a Bigfoot. What can you do for that?" I'm not just going to
Hmm.
do that. But it was this second time when they zapped me, it was not good. I ain't ever thrown up blood before, and it was pretty scary.
Jeez.
That's like fighting words right there.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild, man. That's so what now that second time you got hit, you didn't see anything. It just kind of hit you out of
Mm-mm.
nowhere.
Yeah, it just hit me out of nowhere.
Now, was this in the same area?
Yes. Yeah, it's the same area as
Okay.
where I got. It's the same area as where I got hit the first time. Yeah.
Oh
Like I said,
man.
it's not far from my main research area, but it's right there. And there's a little bit of a backstory behind this area and how I found it. So I started looking for new places to go research. I looked on Google, to see if you put Google reviews on there. And there was
Mm.
a Google review from 2023 it was 2022. It was 2022. There was a Google review of somebody said they seen a giant moth cross the road in front of the location of this place. And then it was in 2023 there was a woman and her friend in this area. They were sitting in the car, and it was dark, and it was a moonlit night, and they said they seen this large black 8.5 foot tall creature walk up, unfurl its wings, and let out a shriek. And that woman doesn't live here anymore. She lives all the way out in California. And I've been trying to get a hold of this woman, and she will not reach back out to me. So I don't know
Mothman.
if it was a Mothman or some kind of demon or what, but if I figured if it was a Mothman, it would be some kind of description of the red eyes, because that's typically what you hear about with Mothman is the big red eyes. But there was no description of the red eyes, just a 8 foot tall creature with wings that was blacker than the night.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. That's kind of
So
like
you-
what I saw.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the body of the thing that I saw. It's just big red eyes. It was all black.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
So these
I've also found in this area 18-inch claw marks
Whoa.
with five digits, 18 inches from claw to claw.
Whoa.
wow.
Wait,
That's
wait,
wild.
They're
wait.
huge.
5 digit. Wait,
Yeah.
18 inches from here to the thumb
No, from here
or
to the
to the pinky?
yeah.
Okay. Well, that's crazy. It'd be even
Yeah.
crazier if it was from digit to digit.
Yeah. Imagine that grabbing you in the chest,
Yeah.
saying
Yeah,
hi.
it's scary. Yeah, I think
No.
I've got pictures of it posted on Instagram. I think, but because when I seen them, I'm like, there's no way a creature done this. But when I look at how deep it was, it's like, yeah, a creature done this.
Yeah, grizzly, the largest grizzly is their paws aren't even that. A polar bear, their paws aren't that big. 17
Yeah,
inches?
that's
Dude, that's like that's insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What's the crazy thing is, it looks like it pushed off from the tree because when the claw marks kind of come out, it looks like it just pushed itself off the tree. So it was wild. I don't know. I don't know if it's a dogman or what, but something big definitely left those claw marks. And I've actually started finding a little bit more, but they're a little bit smaller than these. But I think I can't remember. I measure them. I can't remember what it is right off the top of my head. But they're nowhere near as impressive as those are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when this one thing, the one dogman that you saw when it scratched the tree, were you able to get any photos of the scratches on the tree? Like, how big were those?
I think we have pictures. I can't remember. I'll have to text the guys that was with me. It was me, my buddy Rick, and Steven, which that was the first time I'd ever met them. They came down from Virginia. They have like a 6-hour drive, but they're always coming down researching with me. And I don't think we have any pictures of that, but we have like the measurements from where it was, from where I was standing and all that. But I don't think I remember taking pictures of the claw marks, but we did see where it had scratched the tree.
And that was like what, 9-10 feet up ish.
Yeah, because it had
Wow.
it had its arm propped up, and then I kind of went off of that from where, kind of like where its elbow was where the top of its head was. So
All right, interesting.
and then and we have the recordings of this, but back in July of last year, no, it was June. It was June or July. We recorded a roar, and the funny thing is how that happened was we were doing a little night investigation there. We didn't camp out overnight. We're just sitting there, talking and watching these orbs and stuff like that. And we were listening to Hulk Hogan talk at the Republican convention. And he was on the phone with his wife, and this thing just roars. Like, if you could imagine what a T-Rex sounded like in real life, that's probably what it would have been. But we looked at each other at the exact same time with the exact same expression on our face. Like, he told his wife, I gotta go. We just heard a roar. And luckily we had the audio recorder going, and we picked it up. But the only bad thing about it was those dang gone cicadas were going crazy that night. And so we kind of got to clean it up, and we're still in the process of cleaning it up and getting it right. But, and then actually this March, it was when my buddy Jim came out and I casted the other footprint. We were out in that other area where I've been zapped at, and we heard a roar over there, and it was not like that roar. It was something completely different. And we tried every way, because we got a little documentary coming out from his trip, but we tried everywhere in the world to pick up that on audio. We never did. But the crazy thing was, it sounded like it was right on top of us, but yet it was so far away.
Wow. Now, are any of you guys hunters?
I do, yeah. I deer hunt and turkey hunt.
Deer and turkey?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, I've heard, I love watching Steve Ranella, and I
Yeah.
love watching those guys. I used to watch, what is it? What was this show called? Meat Eaters?
Yeah,
Was that
meat
what it?
eaters.
Yeah. So that dude, I've watched all of them, and I listen. I grew up in hunting country, and that's what most people hunt in upstate New York is deer and turkey,
Mm-hmm.
and there's goose hunting, of course, as well. But these guys know like what all the animals sound like. They're used to the coyotes. They're used to even in elk country. The guys that are used to hunting in these areas, you know what the animals sound like around you.
Oh, yeah.
So when you hear a roar like that, I'm sure you're like, that ain't nothing.
That's not normal. Yeah.
That ain't normal. So
Yeah.
yeah, for people that are like, it could be just because I know we all know animals. There's some animals that sound really crazy. Like when you hear a deer like that's hurt and it's
Yeah.
screaming, oh, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
It's
Well, the whippoorwills even, you hear a whippoorwill, it kind of sounds like a Bigfoot whistling.
what's that?
That
What is
is
that?
wild.
A whippoorwill? You ever heard of whippoorwill? It's a
No, I
bird.
don't know. Okay. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah,
It sounds like a
they call when they name it a whippoorwill because whenever they do the whistle that they do, it literally sounds like they're saying whippoorwill, but it's a whistle.
oh wow. So
Wow.
it sounds like
Yeah.
almost like a human whistling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
I'll have to look into that one. That's interesting.
Yeah.
When I was watching you on the confessionals, there's audio on there as well of like this
Yeah.
thing crying out. If it
Mhm.
sounds like in the woods. Was this the same footage that you were kind of or
Yeah.
audio you were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, dude, 'cause
Yeah,
that's wild.
that was the first one that I'd ever seen. I got the picture of it up there on a cliff, and then that night that I saw it, and then the next night after they were hollering. And I've actually had a spectral analysis done of this audio, and the vocalizations range from 250 hertz all the way up to 2,000 hertz. And the funny thing about this whole ordeal was I had a guy, I was a guest on his podcast. He's like, I'm almost positive that this is an elk. I've got a buddy that's an expert in elk, and he's like, I'm going to send it to him and let him figure out what this is because I'm almost positive that this is an elk. And it came to the time that me come on a show, and he kind of was like, I thought I was right, but I sent it to my expert, and he's like, that's not an elk. I don't know what the heck that is.
Wow.
Dude, when I closed my eyes and I was listening to it, right? And I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes, right? And I'm like listening to it, and with everything and all the research and guys that we've had on the show talking about, the spiritual aspect of this, it's almost like it was crying for like redemption. If you if
I,
you if it was like it's a weird kind of yelp, not yelp, but it was like a weird roar, moan,
yeah,
and it was like, man, is this thing just in the dry places, right? That
I
like
don't,
Christ talks about, just walking
yeah,
and just cursed, and you did mention earlier, like the good ones and the bad ones, and
mhm,
and maybe there
yeah,
are some that wish they could have redemption, but they're cursed, right? And
yeah,
there's
exactly, yeah,
so, and then what some of them are like just super rebellious still, and they just hate God, and they want to just instill fear and through all
that's
his
it.
supernatural capabilities and all that.
Well, in Revelations it says that the beast and the beasts of the earth will be unleashed. And I'm almost sitting here like, what if these beasts are the Bigfoot, these dogmen, and all these other critters roaming around? But let me tell you,
Right.
there is other stuff besides the Bigfoot, the dogman, and the feral people roaming around. So it was July 24th of last year. I go out in my research area and I found a 3-toed track. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this track and I'm like, well, what leaves a 3-toe print other than a dinosaur? I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it and I'm like, that's odd. And then all of a sudden this clicking sound, just straight out of the Predator movie, dude, was what it sounded like. The Predator makes that little call
Oh
that it
yeah.
does. That's what it sounded like. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking around and I'm like, what is this? And so on my back camera, I get home and I look through the footage of that part where I was kind of looking down at the track, and all that I see is this flash of gray just peek out from behind the tree and then go right back. And then I kind of loaded up and zoned it in a little bit, and I'm like, well, what is this? And I showed it to my wife. I said, what do you think that is? And she said, I don't know. It looks like a dinosaur. And I'm like, well, I don't know either.
What?
Yeah. If I've had people tell me it's a gray or reptilian, a dinosaur. I don't know.
How big were the tracks? Like how big was it?
As big as my hand. I got a pretty good
Oh,
sized hand. They were as big as my hand. I got my hand down there in a picture for scale of it. I actually have that posted on Instagram, I think. I know I've got it posted on a couple of different platforms.
yeah. The only thing that could make that is a giant emu. Like
Yeah,
a
exactly. Yeah, ostrich or emu. Yeah, and
ostrich or emu.
there ain't none of them
I mean,
running around the Great Smoky Mountains.
right. No, I wouldn't think so anyway.
Yeah.
But that's crazy.
Well, I
Was
don't
it
know.
like
We just
cloaked?
had a zebra. We just had a zebra running around Tennessee that evaded capture for like 7 days. It made the news all over TikTok and everything.
That's funny, but that's a pet, right?
Yeah.
It's like right. Yeah, zebras are wild too. But so was this thing like cloaked, or you said it was gray? It
Wasn't cloaked. It just fully peeked out from behind the tree and revealed itself, and then it just went right back. Like it was
wow.
so fast. Like it just peeked out just enough to show itself, and then it just dashed right back.
Oh, creepy, man. That is
I've
creepy. It
got
was
a lot
making
of
that
crazy stuff
click
on
noise.
videos.
Dude, that
And
is crazy.
I actually got a portal manifesting on video, and I was hiking by these railroad tracks, and in the foliage, you can kind of see the shadows a little bit, and then you kind of see this like distortion, and then from frame to frame, it goes from this kind of blurry blob into a perfect circle.
Oh,
So
wow.
whether these portals go to different dimensions, different times, I don't know. But I actually just recently had a couple reach out to me about seeing a pterodactyl in Gatlinburg, and they weren't the only ones that seen it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Those pictures, you seen those old pictures of those guys back in like the early 1900s that have that big black bird or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
The natives called these what they call these birds, the warhawks or the
Thunderbirds.
thunderbirds. Wow. Yeah, no, man. That's like you would think you'd see these things more often because it's kind of the sky's in plain sight. If you see them fly
Yeah.
over, you're going to notice they're not a normal size. But I could see, I believe, I could see that they're still out there in more desolate areas and maybe peek out every now and then.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, that's so how long ago was this, the pterodactyl thing?
Just a couple months ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And where was
They
that?
said it in Gatlinburg. You know where Gatlinburg is?
Is that's
Tennessee.
Virginia? Tennessee. Okay.
Right outside, Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, and Gatlinburg. Yeah.
Wow.
They said it was flying in and out of traffic, and they weren't the only ones that seen it.
What?
Oh my God. Dude, that's crazy.
Oh my goodness, man.
Well, then that's like the Gatlinburg police and stuff like that. They'll get reports of the monkeys outside the cabins, and then they'll go up there and they'll just tell them it's bears, and then they'll leave.
So people are seeing monkeys.
Inside.
People are seeing like chimps or what?
Yeah, the Bigfoot.
They're seeing juvenile Bigfoot. Probably.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I heard they like to stack stones in front of the door.
Yeah,
in front of the cabin.
Oh
doors.
my goodness! Wow.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, they're very crafty. I mean, it's got to be a part of whatever culture's behind Bigfoot. I don't know.
They definitely have to pass the time somehow, and I think that's how them little ones do it.
Yeah, and you've talked about too with your experiences. You've seen different designs with branches and all kinds of stuff in the forest. I mean, even one of them you said was an X. I mean, I know a lot of occult symbolism behind the X and all this kind of stuff. It's very fascinating. I have a question for you, man, because it is something that I've seen circulating in the community, Christian podcast community, whatever. What are your thoughts on like Christians who say wanting to have these experiences or at least just adventure them, and they say that it's a bad thing to do? What are your thoughts on that?
Don't take it lightly. because there is unintended consequences whenever it comes to doing this kind of stuff. They will follow you home, and one thing that you can do to prevent that is don't feed them, because I learned that the hard way. I used to feed them. I used to feed them Oreos and apples, and it got to the point of where I stopped feeding them, and that's when they followed me home. And that's when the stuff would happen. They would take my spare tire off of my trash can, put it on the back porch, and when I would go outside and open the screen door, the tire would be there, so I'd have to put it back on the trash can. Then it got to the point of where I would get done grilling, and I'd close the grill, and I'd come back outside, the grill would be open. And then it got to the point of where they would smack the side of the house, smack the windows. And then it just came to the point of where I just set ground rules for them and told them what I would accept and what I wouldn't accept, and then they just stopped. So, and then it got to the point of where stuff started happening in the house. Just cold chills all throughout the house. It got to the point that my girls wouldn't sleep all night. They'd wake up in the middle of the night screaming. And then it just got to the point of, I told them just to stop and just go on back to wherever you got to go and leave me and my family alone. I'm not tolerating this. And in the name of Jesus, just go. And it eventually just stopped. And I think initially, since I've done that, they've kind of distanced themselves, which I don't live far from that property at all now. But it's just, there is a spiritual power over these things, and it's not to be taken lightly, because there is more to them than just the friendly Harry and the Hendersons depictions that you see in the movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's wicked crazy, man. Even just the portal talk is crazy.
Mm-hmm. It's wild to think about.
Is that the only doorway maybe that they have to come in, like, from your own thoughts?
I don't know. I haven't really thought about it that much, but it is, I mean, I would imagine, they can see on different frequencies, wavelengths or whatever, so they know exactly where these things are. And, who's to say when you don't see one and it goes behind a tree and it don't come back out, that it just went through a doorway, and, and you'll never see it again. And it's almost like I've wondered just too, if the longer they are here, the longer they're in their flesh and blood form or whatever, it's if they're just strictly just bound to this earth after that, and then the ones that, do use their abilities or whatever, they can still do that. I don't know.
Yeah,
it just brings more questions.
Oh yeah, dude. Tony Merkel, the whole confessionals thing, like watching all of the confessions, watching all these stories from all these different people that have very similar stories, and you hear people talking about these black goo orbs that turn into a animal or turn into a Bigfoot like character, and they're just kind of morphing and changing and like going up a hill and like then disappearing like out of nowhere. And it's like, what is going on?
Well, I've kind of got a couple of stories to go with the orb. So I think it was in May or June. It was when Rick came out. We had an orb moving in front of us. It was going from the left to the right. And, we're passing the thermal back and forth. We're standing right beside each other. And as Rick goes to hand it back to me the last time, there's a tree and the orb is gone. There's a Bigfoot behind that tree. And it takes 3 steps and it's across the trail, and then it goes down in the holler below us, the same holler where Operation Smoke took place, and it screamed at us. It was either 2 or 3 times back to back, and then up on the ridge what sounded like a big owl. And so what just happened this last Saturday, my buddy Rogers, he's the one that videoed on the thermal, and so I'm standing there talking to him, and he's like, Harley, there's a big face and it's just looking here at me. And so by the time this is a brand new thermal, and I'm trying to help him figure it out, because I didn't even know which buttons to push. And our buddy Flat Rock comes over and he takes a couple still shots of it. And after that, this big head is gone. And then almost almost a couple minutes after that was gone, this orb comes out, and we got almost 2 minutes of footage of it, and that orb's just moving back and forth, and like it. And when you watch the video, it's posted on my Instagram, you see it come out from the left at first. It just starts out as little bitty, and then it comes up and it becomes bigger, and it's like pulsating. It's just unbelievable, man. It is
Wow.
unbelievable.
It was pulsating light. Just wow.
Like a heartbeat or something.
Oh yeah, I was just about to say that, right?
That's crazy. Yeah. I remember one time I was sitting in my backyard in Vegas, and I chalk everything up to the military and aerospace programs out here.
Well,
Because
especially being in the desert. Right?
yeah, I mean, look where I am. I mean, like Bob Lazar country type deal. But I saw this one. I'm sitting on the backyard, and my dad starts screaming at me he's in the backyard. I was in front of the house. And he's like screaming at me to come in the back. I thought the house was on fire. So I get into the backyard, and he points up, and there's this solid phantom black. Like, you know how the description of phantom black. It ain't normal black. It was just floating above the house perfectly. I couldn't even describe it to you how crazy this was. And this thing was, I don't know, 10 by 10, right? The diameter was probably 10. And this thing, 10 feet. And this thing it looked like it was going kind of steady and slow, but it went over about 20 miles over the mountaintop in seconds, man. 15,
That's
20 seconds.
wow. It's like darker than black.
Darker than black. It was phantom black. And I'm like, until I realized, because I watched it the whole way, I thought it may have been like a weather balloon or something like that. But when I when I realized how fast it was actually going, maybe it was bigger than that. Maybe it wasn't as low as I thought it was, and maybe it was cruising, man. So it's like the orb thing. That's a whole. That's different though. Then
was it so black that it almost looked two-dimensional? It's like you
yeah,
couldn't see
no.
if it was a ball or is that a
no
portal circle flying through the air.
No,
like a black hole.
It definitely looked like it was obviously a sphere, but it was so black that really it's like none of the light, because this was during the day, none of the light was reflecting off of it in any type of way. It was very weird. Yeah, Vegas is, man, when you're really looking out here, you keep your eyes in the sky, you'll see something.
Yeah, keep your eyes open. Well, yeah, not far from Area 51.
Yeah, like about 50 miles, I think, right
Well,
north.
me and Jesse, we've actually camped. I think we had to be maybe 25 miles away from Area 51, where we were at.
Wow.
I mean, it was pretty rural because it was a 45 to 50-minute ride from the highway on like jagged rock, and it was really only a road that you could tell because people drove it. And it was real sketchy. We're the only ones there, by the way. Like, in this mountain range, in this campsite area where it's got a bunch of slots.
It's a tell how many visitors you had at night.
Well, it was interesting because you hear the air bases are flying around. They're doing drills or something. We did hear some bombing runs going on. I mean, at one point we were trying to dig for fuel for the fire pretty much and trying to get stuff up out of the ground. And dude, I swear when we stuck the shovel in the ground, or no, it wasn't the shovel, it was your
pickaxe.
Your pickaxe.
Yeah.
I hit it in the ground, dude, and it was like I was hitting like it was hollow. Like the mountain was it felt like the mountain was hollow.
Underground military.
So like when I would hit the ground, I could feel the vibrations going my left and my right. If you can kind of get where I'm saying, like,
we had
and I said something to you, Jesse, but I mean,
I don't remember.
Who knows?
We had the cabin in the woods below us type thing.
Dude, but we just didn't fit the ritual. You know what I'm saying? So they didn't mess with us.
It was so cold. It was unbearably cold too. It was like 18 degrees there. It was in the chill.
Yeah.
We were at about 6,000 to 7,000 feet up elevation. So it was pretty cold. Blood thins. It feels colder than it is. I mean, 18 degrees is cold.
Yeah. What's crazy?
That's too cold for me.
Yeah. The next mountain range over, which you could see right on the other side of that, was Area 51.
Yep.
And you can actually go to the top of that mountain range at night. You could stay there, you camp out, and you can see the runway light up. You'll see the runway light up.
Wow.
You'll see those things light. I watched a video of a guy on YouTube who actually showed his adventure at night there, and at like I think it was like 1 o'clock, like 3 o'clock, and like 5 o'clock, the runway turned on, and they were just
Hmm.
launching stuff, right?
Wow.
Yeah, you wanted
It's
to go to that
wild.
peak. Yeah, during the day, I had my dog with me. I have a Belgian Malinois, a German Shepherd, and she's a great dog. And she probably would have guided us out of there if we did go in. But I'm telling you right now, like the bush in there, that it's
Mhm.
all the same. I don't know what these trees are called. They're all real short, stumpy trees, but they all like look like they're almost planted. They're all lined up, and
I'm
you'll
gonna get
get.
my I'm gonna get my footprint show y'all right quick. Hang on a
Oh,
second.
there we
Oh
go.
yeah, right on.
Yeah, you'll get straight up
I,
lost
I
in there,
want to
dude.
ask him this question when he comes back, and but it's a question I'll ask you. If you were to, dedicate a portion of your life to Bigfoot hunting, cryptid hunting in general, right? You're just trying to adventurize and trying to figure out more about the phenomenon, right? What would you be hunting? Would you be hunting like evidence? Would you be hunting for like what would you be?
I
What,
think it would change over time, of course, just like it is with Harley. He's he's gonna it's his research is gonna continue to change, and his thought process about what these things are going to continue to change,
hmm.
and the amount of research he does is going to dictate how fast it changes and what he's going to be looking for, what he's trying to look for here for. But if I were to go out right now, um, to like Bigfoot hunt, I'd probably look for stuff like he was talking about, like twisted branches, like formations. I hear that a lot, like just weird X's and formations, like markers. Markers in the woods. Oh, what? Okay. Oh,
Oh, look at
what?
it.
Oh,
Oh
dude.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it all in there.
Yeah, I see it.
Here, hold on. Let me get you on the screen.
Okay, look at that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
That's huge.
they're
Yeah,
in the
keep that
middle of
up
their
there.
foot. It kind of hinges like right here, so they can bend the top part of their foot.
Oh
Well, I don't know.
wow.
That's probably because they got the green screen on, but yeah, this one
No,
was
yeah,
17 inches.
right.
So
So I was
Wow.
asking Jesse. Well, actually, I don't know if you gave me your answer, but uh,
Well, I was saying that I would look for markers in the woods. That's probably the first thing I'd look for, is just weird. Like he said, there was an X in the tree. There was twisted. Harley's looking for the twisted branches that they kind of
right.
like break off. They leave them. That's probably what I would look for, because I'm not expecting to find a footprint. I'm not an expert in that by any means.
Yeah.
it's few and far between when you find a
Right.
footprint because I
Right.
think it's like a strategy thing that they'll do because always like when I'm out there, I'm always trying to find like a trackway, and then initially it just comes to the point of finding one print just right there in a perfect area, just a perfect
Right.
print.
You
So
kind
it's
of just
just
run
like,
into
Yeah.
it.
yeah, exactly. It's just like
Yeah.
I think it's a strategic thing that they do. Hey, I'm going this way, just follow my print this way.
Yeah.
And their stride's probably quite big, so you don't expect to see them too close to the feet prints too close together,
Yeah, yeah.
like a normal.
Right. Right.
Well, and they
Right.
don't walk like we do. We kind of walk staggered. They walk in a straight line.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
like a runway model.
Well, yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
just imagine the Bigfoot just,
Well,
Wow.
when you go and look at the Patterson Gimlin film, like that, just how fluent that is. It's unbelievable to think that they're just that graceful, moving as big as they are.
yeah. Wait, so what was that? What did you mention?
The Patterson Gimlin film, Patty,
What is it?
the
So
the
what's
video of
that?
Patty, the Bigfoot. That's the real iconic, Bigfoot
Oh,
video.
yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
Right on. Right on.
that was the one that was the old one that was supposed to
yeah,
be faked or something like that. The guy was
yeah.
roasted.
I don't care what anybody says. There's no way in that point in time that could have been faked, because if you look at the Planet of the Apes movies from that point in time, them suits for that movie weren't that good.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if they go out of the way to just fake muscle movement, like you can't fake that. Even like when the Bigfoot in that video steps, you can see the muscle movement in the legs.
Oh, wow.
If
I'll
you
have
go
to go
and you
back
watch,
and look
if
at
you
that.
go back and watch the revised version of that video, like the edited one where it's just a straight shot, like there's no shakiness or nothing. They've actually stabilized the footage where it's a straight shot of Patty going across through there. and you just zoom in and look, you can see the muscle movement.
Wow.
Just the muscle movement in the leg, even like when she moves her arm back and forth along her leg, you can see the hair just moving back and forth.
Have you seen the video of the? I don't know. I don't think it was a security cam. I think it was a tree cam. In dang, where was this? It's real creepy. I think it was California or Mexico. But it's like a tree cam of this massive, ugly looking Bigfoot that walks by and stares right into the camera. It looks mean.
Looking straight
Looks
up at
mean
it.
as
Yeah,
yes.
I don't know if that. I mean, I would like to think that one's legit. I mean, it looks legit.
It's
But
creepy as all hell.
it is creepy. Yeah, it is. I mean, there's all kinds of videos and with AI being the way it is nowadays, and I think that's for a purpose. I think that's because these things are going to start showing themselves more and more and more, and now this
Interesting.
AI is out, and so it's just going to, whoever posts a video of a Bigfoot, now they can just say, oh, well, that's AI, artificial intelligence. Blah, blah, blah. I don't trust that stuff. I don't.
Right. Well, we always say, the end of days, right? Stevie's going to be like the days of Noah.
Yep.
And we come to that and we go, well, what was it like in the days of Noah? So,
Yeah.
I mean, when you take the churchianity and the whole, watered down church out of it, and you really look into like what were the days of Noah like, it's
Yeah.
like these things might have actually been all over the place.
Exactly.
Nephilim.
Yep. No, yeah,
Wow.
Nephilim, Nephilites, however people want to look at it. And, and there's really, and if you go and look at the Genesis 6:4 verse itself, it says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and thereafter. So, I mean, there's some
Right.
context there.
No, there
Yeah.
is. And you
Yeah.
know what? I can't remember what verse it was, but I was reading something the other day where it was like it seems like I have to read the context, right? We always got to read the context. And it seemed like it contradicted that statement. And it was a verse that basically said that, everything died in the flood besides Noah and his family. But that one Genesis verse that you just said, it clearly states they were here then and they're here after. And it's very clear. It's very, very clear. So
Yeah.
that makes you, and then you look at all the, Smithsonian's hiding skulls and
Giants. Yeah.
giants everywhere. They were in all the newspapers in the late 1800s, early 1900s. You got
Well,
plenty
and
of,
the Kandahar giant, even.
yep, the Kandahar giant. You got the Lovelock Cave giants that the Indians, the indigenous people trapped in the cave. That's a lore that they've documented. So I mean, I believe it, man. I'm positive. And then you got certain islands. What's that one island that they say that there's still giants on today? What is it?
I seen it on TikTok. If you hadn't said it, I probably could have told you, but I did remember seeing it on TikTok.
It's not like a Samoan island. It might be a
Solomon? Was it Solomon
something.
Islands? I think it's
Yes.
Solomon Islands.
I think you're right. Yeah. See,
I
I
was
knew it
gonna
was something with
say
an S.
I was gonna say Augustine Islands, but I was like, no, it ain't Augustine. And then I was like Solomon.
I think you're right because it's a very desolate little. It's not very big.
Yeah.
I don't think, but it's
Well, and then like there was actually a saint. I can't remember which saint it was, but there was a saint that was depicted as a dogman.
it's Saint Christopher.
Saint Christopher. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he was saved apparently, and it's like we had a guy on. His name's Brian from Demon Erasers, and he talks about like preach the gospel to every Stevie. How does the verse go? Preach the gospel to every
creature.
every creature.
Well, yeah, and it's an interesting verse, right?
It
I
is.
think a bunch of different things.
I'd like to know the breakdown of the. Is that Hebrew or is that Greek?
That'd be Greek.
That'd be Greek. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know the original for creature.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Actually, I'll try and look it up right now.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, because if it does say that.
Harley, I had a question for you. So
yeah,
you've seemed like you've turned your view in your life, on this objective that you have, right? With going out there and all this. What is your overall goal? with it?
You know, it was originally, just to go out and prove that these things existed. Well, I quite frankly have just tossed that out the door, because I don't care who believes and who doesn't, because at the end of the day, I know that they're out here and they exist. But then a part of me is like, well, if I can come into this and, and just share the word for a little bit, just kind of just explain the biblical narrative in a sense. And that's kind of what I've done with it, and just at this conference Saturday that I was at in Alabama, I was just sharing the word of God, just a little bit of Genesis here and there, and, just talking about my beliefs and how it affects me in my research. And, it's ultimately about the awareness for these things being out here, but also just, if I can change somebody's life, just by quoting a little bit of scripture to them out of the Bible, and that's my whole goal made right there.
Yeah, man, it's awesome, dude. I mean, really, a lot of people are doing that, and I think it's all got I think it's all Holy Spirit moving, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with the days that we're living in, especially the information age, seems like it's getting into a disinformation age, which is even
Mm-hmm.
more interesting because you have a lot of the people of the world are sucked in and seduced to the unbiblical narrative of these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, and that's what I was telling Jesse a little bit ago, this artificial intelligence, this artificial intelligence just came here out of nowhere, and it's getting as advanced as it is. And I think ultimately it's the fallen in some way, shape, or form, because Nephilim, Nephilim spirits, they have to have a vessel or some sort, and maybe this AI is a vessel or in some way, shape, or form for them to, get their narrative out there, or however they're going to do it. But ultimately, I think this AI is here now because these sightings are going to get more and more on the rise. And and you go see a video of a legit Bigfoot, and then somebody can go, oh well, that's just AI.
Right.
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 And you know what? It kind of it's like a smack in the face to you guys and
Yeah,
guys in
it
your line
is.
of work,
It
where
is.
you go on TikTok, right? You guys are working so hard to try and capture legit footage and evidence of the phenomenon. And then now you've got VO3 is like just making Bigfoot videos.
Bigfoot
Perfect.
Right.
vlogs, yeah, Bigfoot vlogs, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
just like it is, man, because like I have a full-time job. I'm a lineman. I work on the power lines, and it's
Oh,
just
good for
like,
you.
I don't have the time to deal with
It's good
the
work.
night. Like it's just, because I work 40, 50 hours a week, and then maybe a good storm when it'll come in, and then it's like, I don't have the time to deal with this
Yeah.
artificial intelligence bullcrap when it's taken away from the legit stuff that I have to share.
Right. So you're a lineman. You ever thought
Yeah.
about, I the upstate New York, the fair in New York is incredibly country. It's all for country boys mostly. You got the biggest pig contest, the biggest cow contest. You got a whole bunch of farmer boys up there, and then you got these guys that are running up logs. You
Oh
seen that?
Lord, yeah.
The
Is the
speed run.
lineman rodeo?
I don't know what it's called. It's probably that's probably what it's called. But they just they run up as fast as they can with the ropes. They got the spike shoes on or whatnot, and
Oh,
then they drop
it
down.
might be a lineman rodeo, because that's how we do the lineman rodeos. Who can climb up the pole fastest or
Ah,
Right.
whatever. Yeah, it might be
It's
a
the same
lineman
thing.
rodeo. Yeah.
I'm kind of kidding. But you know what else is like a slap in the face talking about all this stuff is when we have people all the time try to tell us that um when we compare like what I just said, like when I compared like the days of Noah, when
Mhm.
we use scripture to kind of line some of this stuff up, people try to tell us that it is unholy and it is
Yeah.
against what Jesus said. And I don't I don't necessarily agree with them at all, really. I don't
Right.
agree with them at all.
Mm-mm.
But it's like there's a lot of people that come, they leave comments on our show, and that's fine. We want your
Yeah.
comment. We want you to watch the episode. I'm glad. Thank you guys for watching it.
Mhm.
And I'll take your constructive criticism any day because
Yeah.
maybe I'll learn something. Absolutely. But you hear that and you're like, man, I just don't get why these people don't understand like what we're doing. I, you
That's
know,
just the devil working his way in and just being deceitful.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it feels that way. I tell you what, it does feel that way. I read you got to read. Joe Rogan always says, "Stay out, just don't
Yeah.
read the comment."
Stay out of the comments.
I went through earlier, dude, and it's awesome that we're establishing a consistent show and people are actually watching. We don't have huge numbers by any means. One day we'll get there. Hopefully, one day we'll be like the confessionals, and we'll have we can't even pay attention. It's even getting like that now. I went through earlier and looked at a bunch of old comments, and I found that comment. I found a comment of a person that left a whole book, a whole,
Oh, a
a whole book
keyboard
for.
warrior.
Yeah. They were nice, they were a Christian and they were nice about it. I didn't get through the whole thing, but it's just funny. I just thought I'd add that. It's like a smack in the face.
I didn't get through the whole thing, but stop writing so much.
Yeah, I didn't. I couldn't. There's no way. But anyways, yeah, I just thought I'd add that. It's like a smack in the face,
Yeah, it is. It is. It really is.
Because I love Jesus and I love learning more and more about the scripture. And I believe it's the greatest history book ever written. And
Absolutely.
I believe it correlates. It's written about Earth. It's written about this realm that we live in. And why not, just like we said in Genesis, they were here before and after. So, hey, take it for how, I take that as how we take it.
Don't take it with just a grain of salt. Take it wholeheartedly. Don't take it with just a little bit. Take the whole thing. If you're gonna read it, you might as well just take it all and go. Don't take a little bit of it. Just don't take. They were in the earth in those days. You got to take thereafter too.
Right. Yeah, and this is where discernment lies in studying and show thyself approved type deal, like where you read the Bible.
What gets me, man, especially thinking about how the Nephilim were present after the flood and in those days, like what does it for me is Jude, and it's Jude 1 verse 6 and 7, and it says, "And the angels in which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved them in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, and set forth an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire." Jude is making a comparison to what the angels did before the flood. Sodom and Gomorrah was doing it in like manner. And so who knows? Maybe this is the second incursion and we're given some more information. Who knows, right? And we know that there was interaction with angels, with Lot and that whole situation there, and it's a very crazy story. But when it says here it's talking about fornication, right? So it's talking about intermingling and going after strange flesh, dude. That's hybridization. That's hybridization, right? Between what does the Bible refer that as? But anyways, going to animals, right? So we have like this image here, and so here,
the weird part about that.
Hold on, here's my point is that if Sodom and Gomorrah was doing that, then the fallen angel incursion before the flood was the Nephilim were also intermingling with animals. And this is where we could get this is why Enoch makes even more sense, because Enoch talks about the offspring of the Nephilim.
The
Eliud. Now in today's world and through just the history of ancient cultures, because this is not a first time thing, right? With the paranormal Bigfoot. But I'm seeing a lot more clues now that, man, especially with the story Bo Kennedy tells, right? And Doc Brown has talked about it, right? Doc Brown's talked about it. Shout out to Prometheus Lens podcast. But there's this story of this lady forming a relationship with a Bigfoot, and it gives its name, and its name was Eliud, right? And even now, there was Bo Kennedy that was trying to research that at the time. What does that mean? Gary Wayne got involved, and they've kind of narrowed it down to like, whoa, this thing is claiming to
the Nephilim.
It's claiming to be it.
Well, so you talk going back to the strange flesh, and you were saying animals. That's what I was thinking at first, that it was like hybridization and bestiality, right?
Yeah.
But the comment and the word strange flesh, that's not that they're not really talking about specifically animals. The Bible isn't really
Yeah.
specifically talking about. I could be wrong, but when I hear strange flesh, I'm like thinking like it could be an animal hybrid of something else, like a Baphomet type of goat mixed with a human. Like it was already a hybrid that they were intermingling with.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it comes to mind. It wasn't just like a normal animal. It wasn't. Anyways, yeah, the
Yeah.
strange
The
flesh thing really
strange
throws.
flesh. That does throw a little bit of a curveball.
It is. It is. And again, that makes me wonder. Now let's go back to the Greek root or the Hebrew origins. Like
Well, you go and look at Greek mythology. You have these centaurs, these minotaurs, all these man-human hybridologies, whatever. And it's just
right,
like those are the works of the fallen. That's just the
right,
gene manipulation. Goes into the seed war, and we kind of talked about that. Well, maybe that's the strange flesh. I mean, maybe there's a key somewhere. We just got to find it. We just got to dig within the text, and we got to find out what this strange flesh is.
right. Yeah, because it's definitely not like it would have been more. I would
Yeah.
assume it'd be more because it talks about beasts.
So I got it right here.
Yeah.
I got the word strange is G2087 in the Strong's Concordance, and it's called heteros. And it's an adjective. It's describing something, and it says different or altered,
Ooh,
other,
Altered.
some, strange. Okay, so it basically means here, not of the same nature. So
Altered.
not of the
Altered,
same
yeah.
nature,
Altered.
right? A different class, a different kind, right?
Oof.
So I think it is me personally, I think it is talking about that they were intermingling with animals. And I say that.
Yeah.
I say that because, in Leviticus and in those areas where Moses is talking about these things, this is all after, all this stuff.
Mhm.
But he's like, male and male, don't do that. Female,
Right.
female, don't do that. And then, man and animal, don't do that.
Yeah, don't.
So I'm like, all right, God's kind of telling his people here, don't practice what the world was
Yeah.
practicing, or
Mhm.
these people worshiping these pagan entities, deities, whatever, and they were falling into this mess.
Right.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. So it's interesting at itself, man, because I've heard Dr. I think it's Young Kim, but he's the PhD pastor. He's the Asian guy, Jesse, that I'll send you videos of him and he starts breaking this stuff down. But that's where I got this kind of interpretation from a little bit to help me kind of
Okay.
understand and bring that together. It's all just very interesting, man. I mean, and Christ says that in the end days, it would be like the days of Noah,
Yeah.
hinting a bunch of different things.
Mhm.
I don't think it's just specific on the fact where it's talking about, oh, they ate and they drank and they gave them, they took marriage and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the flood took them. I think there's a lot of other things that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
obviously.
course. And then when you
Absolutely.
look at that,
Jesus is
when
just saying they still didn't care.
Yeah.
Okay. They lived their lives,
yeah, because he didn't mean there was going to be another flood because God promised that there would be no other flood.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's why we
wild.
have the rainbow.
There we
That's it.
go.
Had to
God's
throw it in
promise.
there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man.
That's the original, the OG rainbow, not the.
Hey, so I wanted to circle back around to your adventures in the mountains and Bigfoot and everything. What is like the best time? And like, what is your protocol when you go out there?
I go out there with a clear head and I just listen to everything. And sometimes I'll just go out there and sit and let them come to me. And I don't really, I'll take some waters with me and I'll kind of do like a little fasting thing, honestly, before I go out there. I don't really eat or anything. So I just put my full attention on the woods. And it's a misconception that these things are only out during the night. They have a system. So they'll have some up during the day, what I call the day watchers, and those will be the ones that are be up and making sure nobody's getting too close to the ones that are sleeping. And then they'll kind of just swap roles. You know, the ones that are up during the day, they'll sleep at the night, while the other ones, they're up doing the hunting or whatever it is that they got to do.
Yeah. Now,
So,
what kind of firepower you packing here? If I go
uh,
out with you one day, dude, I want to go home. Let's go home. You
well,
know.
you can pack whatever you want to pack. I ain't much on packing anything, but I will say that when we camp, um, I'll be sure to bless and anoint the
Oh,
camp. That way, nothing
there we
will
go.
get in.
That's the best right there, man.
Mm.
You can't beat that. You really
Spiritual,
can't.
spiritual warfare, my friend. There is
Yep.
power over these things in the name of Jesus, and demons flee in 7 directions in the mention of His name. So,
Oh, amen, dude.
Yeah, I love what you brought up with fasting because I've been trying to tell people, my friends and family that have never really actually like intermittent fasting through the day. When you get to that point to where your body actually goes into starts to go into autophagy, you get to the point, and when you get used to it, it becomes easier and easier, right? But
Mhm.
you get to a point to where, okay, if you're not used to fasting, typically, let's say I typically eat at noon or morning. Let's say I eat breakfast every day. You're going to be hungry, very hungry around the same time every day. And if you wait just an hour, you're going to be
Yeah.
starving. You're going to be like, "Oh,
Yep.
I'll eat anything right now." But if you wait a little bit
Hmm.
longer and you kill that, you just work past, drink some water, you work past that, your hunger completely goes away after a few
Yes.
hours. And then this weird thing happens to where you're as long as you're hydrated, you're just very sharp. You're very
Hmm.
mentally aware, and it is incredible. You have way more focus. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I
It
love it. I
is.
do
It
it almost
is.
every day
That's what
because I have to work.
that's
You're a
it
lineman.
is. It works. Yeah.
You're a lineman, so you fast probably while you work.
Yep. I do.
I
Yep.
knew,
I don't.
yeah,
I don't. I don't eat lunch. The only thing I'll eat is breakfast.
yeah. There you go. And you probably don't eat a big breakfast.
No, I just eat
Yeah.
like I'd get a gas station pizza, and that'd be about it.
Ah, you're funny, dude. I hear it though. You're on the go. Yeah, dude, I'm the same way. I fast and then if I eat at all, if I eat lunch, man, I tank, dude.
Yep.
The blood rushes to the gut and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh
Dude,
boy.
you know what I was thinking? It might be actually like the best thing you could do is fast before you go out there. It's almost like
Absolutely.
a spiritual
Yeah, you get more in tune with
thing
your
too. Right.
surroundings. Yeah.
Right. I mean, prayer gets like stronger, you'd say, just
Hmm.
because with my experience with fasting and doing it, through the spiritual lens with a purpose, trying to break chains, trying to grow closer to God and all this kind of stuff, man. I mean, and the longest I fasted was 72 hours. And I tell you what, when I broke through it, everything got tighter, better. Like with my
Yeah.
relationship with God, everything, certain things that you have struggles with on the side and stuff, boom, they're gone. And it's just like, because once you master the appetite and the fleshly desire of it, you start to like go, oh, okay, like
Yeah.
shut up, you know. You start to ignore it. You start to see that you can do that with a lot of things in your life.
Right.
Yes.
You know,
Deny
Absolutely.
yourself,
Yeah.
you know?
exactly, man. Well, Harley, we got about 15 minutes left, man.
Yeah.
We got probably another time here for another story or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's say I could talk about this other dogman encounter that I got a picture of. I was trying to pull it up on my screen here, but I don't think I can. I'm trying to pull it up on this.
Yeah, Riverside could be tricky sometimes.
Yeah, that's my only thing with Riverside. I like Riverside, but then when it comes
Hmm.
to my little screen, once I've got it, I can't change it. So anyway,
Well, I tell you what,
um,
you could send these to me if you want, and I could
yeah,
show them up on the episode and stuff.
yeah, absolutely. So it was April 28th of last year. Myself and my stepdaughter's dad, Hunter, we went out turkey hunting. So this was my first time turkey hunting since the spring of the 2020 season, because that fall was when I seen my first Bigfoot, and then I stopped hunting. So this turkey season was different for me. I was going to go out there and I was going to get me a turkey. So we get to this place where we're hunting at. It's called Forks of the River Wildlife Management Area. It's like 15-20 minutes from downtown Knoxville.
Mm.
So we get out of the vehicle about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and the sun's just barely starting to come up. And we get to going down the trail a little ways, and we hit the owl call. Well, a couple of them toms just started letting us have it. They were way off in the distance, and I was like, I've never hunted here before. He's like, well, I haven't. And so we kind of pulled up a map, and we were looking, trying to figure out where these birds were going to be at. And there was some fields on the very back of this property next to the river. So we roughed it all the way to these fields, going through the swamps and all this. And we get to the fields. Sun's up now, and these turkeys have shut up since earlier in the morning. And I looked at him and I was like, you done good picking this spot. He's like, man, whatever. And I told him, I said, let's get out of here. I'm ready to go home. He's like, you sure? I said, these turkeys are not going to do anything. He's like, all right, whatever. So we start to head back, and we go into the woods right beside the shed where they keep the tractors and stuff like that for mowing the fields. So we go straight in the woods right beside of that place. And there was a dried up creek bed that came straight down through there. So we go straight up this creek bed. And he was in front of me. I was behind him. And it wasn't 15, 20 yards after getting into the woods, I noticed we were starting getting followed. And I was like, great. I was like, he's not going to hear this. He's not going to experience this. And I'm just like, you know what? I'll just shut up. And if it happens, it happens. So we get to going further up the creek bed. And then it gets to the point of where we have to get out of this creek bed. And we're looking on the maps, and there's a trail that comes across the creek bed. So we decided that we were going to come up right here and then just head back to the vehicle. So when we get to this point, there's a fallen tree, and the fallen tree had a fork in it. And so we had to pull ourselves up from the fork. And so all of a sudden, we get up out of the creek bed, and I'm about 6'6", 6'7", and so I could reach up and grab it perfectly. Hunter was 6'2" or 6'3", and so he pulled himself up first, and we're going down the trail, and I pulled myself up, and it wasn't 30, 40 feet after coming up out of the creek bed, he just stops dead in front of me. He said, Harley, there's something following us. I said, yeah, it's been following us for about 20 minutes. And he's like, well, what is it? I said, it's probably a Bigfoot. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah, it's bipedal footsteps. And he's like, yeah, it's something from 2 feet. And so when we get to the point of I turn around and take 3 pictures. I took a picture to the left. I took a picture straight in front of us from the creek bed that we just got out of. And then I took a picture to the right. And I said, all right, let's go. He said, are you serious? It's a Bigfoot? I said, it's probably a Bigfoot. So we get to the point of getting out of there, and he drops me off at home. And then we get to the point of I'm going through the photos, and the first one, I looked through it real good. There's nothing there. And then I get to the point of going through a second photo, and immediately it was there. Standing in this creek bed that we just came out of is this giant pit bull looking creature. And I sent it to him, and he said, Harley, what the hell is that? And I said, that's a dogman. He said, so not a Bigfoot? I said, not a Bigfoot. But there is a funny story about this wildlife management area. I had a guy reach out to me about his Bigfoot encounter that he had in the Cherokee National Forest. And he said that he grew up next to this property. And he said when he was younger, he had a friend from high school that was out with his dad hanging tree stands. And he got to the point of wandering away from his dad. And he finds this cave. And he said that he could hear something rummaging around through the cave. He could hear the rocks moving and stuff like that. And he said as he looked to the cave entrance, what he said came out of the cave was a large gray werewolf. And he said that picture that I have just goes to show that there's a population of these things living on this wildlife management area.
Wow. Jeez, dude.
Wow is right, man. Golly. I don't know. I don't know anymore if I want to have a adventure. I
Well,
don't know
East
anymore.
Tennessee is wild, man. There's all kinds of stuff.
Because
in
I
these
do.
mountains.
I would love to set up a trip, man, with you guys and go up there, check it out.
Oh yeah, me, you, and Justin and Jesse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
we all get all of them
Yeah,
up
I'd
there.
love to meet all
I'm
those
down.
guys. Are those guys all? I know Doc is local. Are they all local?
Doc lives about 45 minutes to an hour from me. The rest
okay.
of them are out in Middle Tennessee. Drewski and them are out in Murfreesboro. That's right outside of Nashville.
Gotcha.
And then Riley from Midwest Mythos, he's from right on the Indiana-Michigan line. And then Kevin's from Maine.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's all
Man.
desolate out there though. It's all woods, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It
So
I mean,
is.
much
do you have people hitting you up, wanting to
Oh,
be
yeah.
their guide out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
And
wild.
I've got one coming up towards the end of this month. They were out with me in April, and they wanted to come back. They had such a good time.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
I'm
That's
excited for
cool,
that.
man.
They're actually a part of the cryptid warfare guys, so it's exciting to have them back, and they got the real firepower.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
those guys. Those guys were locked and loaded, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
you gotta stay
Oh, man.
strapped up,
Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
yeah, you
I,
do.
I would have to be. There's no way, man. There's
Oh
no way I'd
yeah,
feel comfortable.
yeah. It's like a mini Operation High Jump. It's like you're
Yeah.
going out there with all this firepower. You don't know what you're gonna run into.
Exactly
No.
right. Every day is different out there in the
Yeah.
woods. These things running around. You catch them on a good day, or you catch them on a bad day. It just depends on
Yo,
which one it is.
That's a facts right there, man. That's a facts, man.
It's so funny thinking about
Crazy.
going out there with all this firepower and just like it's probably still even with it, it's just like peace of mind in
Yeah,
somewhat, but it's
it's
like
the peace of mind. Yes.
that's really all it is. It's like you don't have a
Yeah.
chance. We don't have a
No.
chance.
No.
That's terrifying.
It is. It's
man.
terrifying to think about. Yeah, but then there's the positivity of like, no, we've got these. It's just in case.
Right. In
Yep.
the name of Jesus Christ is probably a little
That's
bit more powerful.
that's the best one ultimately.
Wow.
That's it, man. And I'm sure, watch, you through the journey you're going through, you're gonna probably have a lot of people hitting you up also on a spiritual level, man, where
Yeah.
they're going to hear you on podcasts like this or other podcasts, man. They're going to hear your story, your faith, where you come from, even just the lens that you perceive these things through now. It's going to, I think it's going to turn some dials, and it's going to zone people into getting them closer to the truth and
Yes.
closer to the gospel and just that message, man, in general. But I think it's good. I think what you're
Yeah.
doing, that there's a bit a purpose behind it. I really do.
Yeah, it definitely is a purpose, because if somebody would have asked me 5 years ago if I'd be doing this, I'd have probably told them they were crazy. But here I am now.
Right.
I'm doing it, and I love it, and I love meeting the people and sharing my stories and experiences, and kind of helping people accept theirs, and let them learn that they're not alone.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, it's funny hearing you say that you stopped hunting for a little while after you had your first encounter, and I know hunters in New York. My brother-in-law back in New York is hunted since he was a kid, and he went, he rifle hunting his whole life, mostly for deer. And then he got into bow hunting. He just won't go back. He loves bow hunting. That's his thing now. And he won't move from New York. They've talked about it, but he loves hunting so much. So the passion of hunting, people don't understand. Like it is strong. It's your life. Like this
Yeah.
is all you wait for hunting season every year. You're like you can't wait for it to come up. So to hear you say that you dropped it for a little bit and
Yeah,
just
it
to
was
do
a
it's
long
powerful.
time. It was a long time, man, and
Wow.
it was so real to be back out in the woods that first time after those 3 years, because it consumed me, man. It was a hard pill to swallow, just worrying about if I was going to see another one of these things or not.
Right.
Here I am now, just walking in the woods with them and encounter them almost all the time. So it's just pretty crazy.
Yeah.
My wife has had her fair share of moments with them. She's telling me to
Oh,
shut
wow.
up. 'Cause
She's like, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of all of it.
Her first, she's saying her first encounter was my fault. What she didn't see it, but we'll set the scenario. So it was about this time last year on our anniversary, and we went out hiking to go see some waterfalls. And we get up there, the hike goes fine and everything. And then it gets to the point of where we're on our way back out. And so we finally come down off the mountain, and we're going through this valley. And all of a sudden, I noticed that we were starting to be followed. And all of a sudden, I'm telling her, I'm like, we're being followed. It's pacing us, and it's just keeping an eye on us, making sure we're leaving.
Wow.
And she's like, well, what do we do? I said, stay calm, first of all. And she keeps saying, well, what do I need to do? I'm like, just stay calm. And at this point in time, a rock comes flying and lands on the ground. And she said, oh my gosh, what do we do? I said, stay calm. What does she do? She takes off running. And right through this area that we were going through, there were some wet rocks. And
Oh no.
she broke her ankle.
It's really not funny. It's
Oh my
Cameron's
goodness.
got to walk down. I'm not.
Oh, so after that, I'm collecting my thoughts and everything. I'm trying to get her up. I had to carry her for a little bit and then stop. And then it got to the point of where it just all cane broke loose and it just started raining, a monsoon and thundering and lightning. And let me tell you the craziest part about all this. So on our way in, we passed these people coming up, and we never did see these people at the waterfall. So I don't know where they didn't even offer to help me.
Oh my
They didn't
goodness.
even offer to help me get her back off the mountain.
Oh my goodness.
Oh
But yeah,
my
she had a rough first experience, and then it was May 4th. We went back out hiking again, and we actually found a little baby Bigfoot print. It wasn't no bigger than my thumb. It was just a little baby Bigfoot footprint. And then we
Tiny little
found,
baby.
then we found a real big one. I can't remember how big it was. She found the big one, but
That's
Wow.
crazy.
and then and we were out there. We could hear them doing the samurai chatter that they do. She said she wasn't running in.
Oh man.
So the samurai chatter, they hit the trees, right?
No, it's when they talk,
Oh.
they kind of like
Oh.
gibberish. It's like a blah, 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 blah. It's like a language that they got when they talk.
Oh, that's wicked crazy, dude.
Mm-hmm. I've
There's
actually
so
heard
much
them
to
do
it.
that. I've heard them do that. I casted the print back in December, and I poured it, and I was getting ready to leave. It was right at dusky dark, and I could hear two sets of bipedal footsteps coming towards me. And I'm like, all right. And it gets to the point where they stopped. And I could tell there was a size difference because one of them sounded bigger than the other one. And then they started talking back and forth at each other. Blah, 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 blah. And then the other one was like, blah, blah, blah. There was two of them talking back and forth. And then I got to looking at the footprint, and then I got to thinking, and I was like, well, this big one's chewing this little one out for leaving this footprint because it wasn't a very big track. It was like 14 inches. And I was like, I bet this big one's chewing this little one out. And then it got to the point I was like, well, I need to get out of here. So I left. I left the footprint there overnight. I had it poured and everything. I come back the next morning. It's gone. The cast is gone. They took it.
What?
Wow.
So what exactly do you use for the material that you use for that?
Dental
cast.
stone. It's for fillings and stuff like that.
Oh wow. So probably not the cheapest stuff.
Right. Is it like is it a type of porcelain? No, not
No,
porcelain.
it's like it's kind of like I don't really know how to describe it, but all I know is that they use it like the fillings and
fillings
stuff like
and
that.
stuff. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember what exactly it's made
It's-
of.
it's
Composite.
fine.
It's a composite material.
Yeah.
It's a type of composite, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sturdy.
Sure.
I use it for all my stuff. I'm like, this stuff it's hard as a rock. Like it.
Right.
Oh yeah. That
Yeah.
is
It's some
so
good
cool.
stuff.
Right when you said that, I work with cement and stuff every now and then. I'm a plumber in Vegas,
okay.
residential plumber. So every now and then I'll use like certain kind of acrylic caulking or random stuff. I'm just trying to think in my head what would be the best, fastest drying. Like you gotta have something that's gonna dry as fast as possible.
Oh yeah, this stuff just to be safe with it, I let it set up and dry for an hour. So
That's
I don't really use anything too crazy. That plaster of Paris is not very good though.
Yeah, an hour. An hour's as quick as it gets. That's fast.
Yeah, it is. It is. Like the plaster of Paris, if you don't mix it right, it's not going to set up very good.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Totally. I could see that. Yeah. That's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Mental.
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
wild, man. Dude,
Who
Harley,
would've thought?
man, dude, what a life you have, buddy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man. So we're getting ready to wrap up here. Just do you have anything here you wanted to share at the
No,
end, or
I did, but apparently I researched the wrong guest, and I thought his buddy Owen was him, and he's like, "No, that's my buddy Owen." I'm like,
No, Greg.
"Damn it, Tony Merkel, it's your fault."
His name's Glenn.
Glenn. Okay,
Yeah,
Glenn.
Yeah.
Glenn. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just rocked Jesse's world. He's like thrown for a loop.
Dude,
You could have sworn it
well,
was you, man.
Glenn's his story is his childhood and his whole we got to reach out to him because
Yeah.
I can make it happen. I'll get y'all in touch with you.
Oh, awesome.
let's do
dude.
that. Yeah,
That's
because his
awesome.
story, his grandfather was a necromancer, and his upbringing was all the paranormal stuff that he went through. Man, that's a wild
He's
story.
had some run-ins with the Bigfoot too. He's got some Bigfoot stories.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
No
that's
doubt.
crazy.
And he's got
That
him on
guy's
his
probably
he's got him on our property.
Oh wow.
Oh, right there, literally in your backyard.
Well, in his back, in Glenn's backyard. They ain't my
Right.
backyard no more.
Right, that's crazy, man, dude. Wow, Harley, brother, thank you for sharing your time with us tonight. What we kind of do here towards the end is we just give you the floor if there's any message you want to send to the audience, where they can find you and all that stuff as far as social media and content and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Best way to find me is on Facebook. I have a Facebook group, Bigfoot Reports and Data. I also have Instagram, TikTok, and another social YouTube. Yeah, I got YouTube, Bigfoot Reports and Data, and I can get the links over to Steven. He can pop them down in the description below. And I always say this, keep an open mind. The world is a lot bigger than what you could possibly imagine, and just stay prayed up.
Amen, dude. Amen.
Amen.
That's some good advice right there, man. So we're going to pray it out, man, and then we'll go over to the next segment and stuff. So, Lord, we thank you for today. Thank you for every day, God. We thank you for bringing us together, the gift of companionship, making new friends, and hearing some crazy supernatural stories, Lord. Pray that the truth prevails over all, and Lord, that you guide us and just fill us with your Holy Spirit, God. Forgive us for our sins, Lord. We thank you for everything. We thank you for your sacrifice. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen, brother. This was a lot of fun, man. It's not going to be the last time we get together for sure.
Yeah, gotta have y'all here in the woods,
dude. For sure. And we're gonna make a small movie off of it. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm down for it.
I'll try. Now, Jesse's dad has some background in not only photography but videography and all this kind of stuff. But we'd be happy to hopefully be donated some gear and we can come out there.
Oh, yeah, dude, that'd be sick.
Right?
When we went out to camp out near Area 51, he gave me his Sony setup with the rig and everything. So we didn't get to use it much.
Yeah.
It was so
it had
cold.
Like
we had
a
to stay by the fire.
suspension in it, so you could run with it and it would just still.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
And that's his old stuff too. That's years old. So, anyways, hopefully he'll let me borrow that again. The only problem with those cameras, those Sony cameras, the batteries die so quickly, especially in the cold.
All right, Harley. Appreciate you, buddy. Everyone, go check out his stuff. Harley Owens, everybody, brother. Thank you for coming on to the show, giving us all these kind of crazy stories and nightmares. Now I have to watch out for tonight. Dude's got some Bigfoot reports and data.
Dude, this makes me want to go out right after we get off.
It does.
I want to go out into the desert right now.
It does. Because I think like we would think it's fun, and it's awesome knowing there's other people that think it's fun. And like when you get a big party together and it's a cool camping trip, whatever. And the thing is I don't think, because these are like Christian guys going out there, right? Like this isn't, we're not going out there opening doorways, right? Like there is this drama building up in the community where people are bashing Christians for going out and having these kinds of adventures. They think trying to figure out the phenomenon.
Yeah, they probably think that they're doing like, praying or seances or praying to see something or performing rituals to be able to acquire sight or something like that. But I don't think that's anything. That's not the case.
Well, people say Christians should not even go out there at all. And this is coming from the Christian community saying this. But then again, it's not.
Doesn't make sense to me, really.
It's like anything else that you're trying to research.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's like don't look into the historical value of the Bible is what I hear when I hear people say that. Because that's where we make these connections. It's like don't go out looking for Noah's Ark. It's different because this is more spiritual phenomena. This is
sure.
And that's where I could see it in a way. But at the same time, one thing that's really interesting about Harley is that he senses that when something's following him, like he knows.
Right. I mean, that's why there's so many connections that I find with this phenomenon and the ghost, phenomenon as well. It's almost like, and because you've lived in a haunted house before, and when that there's something kind of watching you. It's not a Bigfoot, it's not a Dogman in your house. It's something else, right? Like, and there's a bunch of stories where people see things moving and shadows and all this kinds of stuff. There's sleep paralysis experiences,
right?
And there's a connection with all these things. When you've got people doing research and data content, trying to find these things in the woods, and dude, they just give off this feeling that it's the same realm as the ghost realm. It's the same realm.
Yeah,
some way.
It's weird. Yeah, you're so right about that because now I grew up with it. So I was so accustomed to it for so many years that when I finally moved away or lived in a different house or whatnot, I can sense it very quickly now. If I'm in a house like the last house that I lived, Lonesome Biker Lane, is a funny name. That's the first house that you came to when we first kind of linked back up together.
Oh, yeah.
That house, I'm pretty sure someone died in that house, and we had lots of sleep paralysis in that house. Lots of weird stuff happened in that house. But I could sense it, kind of like Harley, knows this thing is it's tracking us right now. It's crazy.
Yeah. Isn't it so funny where he's like, his friend's like, what? Something's following us. He's like, yeah, I know. It's been doing it for 20 minutes. It's a Bigfoot. It's like, just calm down, relax.
He let his buddy.
I'm telling you to relax.
He let his buddy get to that point. He didn't even tell him. He's like, I'm gonna see if he gets there. I'm gonna see if he notices it. That's awesome. I love that.
Well, you almost have to do that to keep things as organic as possible.
Right.
It's like, hey, look, you thought the entrance was up there, but we're already halfway in this, mother.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Yeah.
You would never be in the state that you're in now if you knew we were here.
Yeah. Right.
Relax.
Right. And then you go, all right, I guess we're already here. He's right.
Yeah, it's funny, man. It's funny, dude. I would love to go out there with Harley and Justin and
we got to take Louis.
Warfare, all those guys,
Got to take
There are a bunch
Louis.
of podcasters too, so it'd be kind of cool. There's a
Right.
bunch of content to be made out there as well, other than just trying to spot a Bigfoot. You got a bunch of awesome personalities. You got a bunch of awesome podcasters who are all on a journey. We're all on a journey, which means that we have conversations with a lot of people about interesting things.
Right.
And that's the thing too, man. You'll run into normal people either at your job or on the side of the street or in the supermarket, and they don't have conversations like we do.
No.
With people that with their experiences and all kinds of stuff. I think it just builds up more, not knowledge, but it gives us a better, I don't get it. It gives us a better grip on things.
Yeah. We're networking. This is what we want, though. Some people don't.
Oh, yeah.
Some people are more introverted and they don't want that at all. But, I love what Harley does, too. He's got the cam on the back and the front. There's no way I'd be able to have a handheld out there. I need a GoPro on the front and on my back because I'm in the game. I'm all in. I'm in the game.
You're in it.
I'm
You're in
focused.
it. Yeah, it's honestly a war zone. you know.
Oh man, it would certainly feel like that around a bunch of guys with guns. Like,
Well, when it gets real, you know, it gets so
for sure.
quiet to where you're like, it's about to go down.
Dude,
It's about to go down.
I just always think to that movie,
Oh man.
Strange Wilderness, where the Bigfoot walks out of the cave and they're like, we're all gonna act. They all got guns and they're not trained at all. Zero gun safety in this situation, and they're all sitting there. This Strange Wilderness is a comedy, by the way, folks, but it's hilarious. The Bigfoot walks out of the cave and they're like, stay calm, and then it like stretches and yawns, and then they just shoot it. Like they just run like 1,000 rounds into it, and they're like, ah, and it's just stretching. It's the Bigfoot's just like stretching.
Right.
They kill it. It's hilarious. They all freak out. You just kill it.
Oh man, that's funny, dude. That's funny.
Yeah.
This was a good one, man. I had a lot of fun on this one. I'm gonna revisit this one a few times.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be fun, man. Folks, I hope you enjoyed it. We appreciate every single person who tunes into our content and supports our show. If you want to support the show, folks, hit that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends. Check us out throughout the week and on the weekend. We try to drop episodes during the week and for you on the weekend. But you can check us out also on audio platforms, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. While you're there, leave a follow, and you could also leave a review as well. 5-star reviews only, folks. Come on now.
Only, baby
Help
boy.
your boy out here.
Also, I wanted to mention that me and Stevie have been talking, and we want to try to figure out how to limit the ads, or at least adjust them and move them around. So that's going to take a little while, but we're going to try to figure that out so the ads aren't as annoying as they have been. So, but also we're going to be at the Bohemian Grove coming up here in just a week or so. So if you're going to be there, come say hi. You know?
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly.
I'm going to be wearing.
If not, if we don't see you, shoot us an email. I'll say sorry.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh man, but that's a wrap, Jesse. This was fun, brother.
Yep, always.
This was a good one. This was a good one, folks. Have a good night, everybody. Gonna see you next time.
See you.